Welcome to the Y in Psychiatry,
Hi, I'm Dr. Amayo. I am a consultant liaison psychiatrist.
where we delve into the intricate nuances of psychiatric topics.
Hello guys, I'm Dr. Handrada.
I did my residency from University of Connecticut, and then I did my fellowship from Georgetown University in consultation and liaison.
Each episode features interview-style discussions that explore the intersection of the mind, medicine, and the human experience.
My name is Edmund. I am an incoming PGY1 psychiatry resident.
Together, we'll uncover the hidden why and the groundbreaking discovery shaping the psychiatric landscape. So grab a seat, a warm beverage, tune in, and let's embark on this journey to unlock the mysteries of the human psyche. Only on the Y in Psychiatry.
And we're back. That's right, guys. Welcome to season 2 of the Y in Psychiatry. Oh boy, am I excited for this season. I am so excited. I've been begging this guy to blackmail these guys to come back to get the band over again.
Oh, God.
And we finally did it. As usual, we have the usual suspects. I'll introduce myself and I'll let everyone introduce themselves. I am Dr. Amayo. I am a consultant liaison psychiatrist.
Hello guys, I'm Dr. Handrada.
I'm Dr. Tan Nguyen. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist.
And my name is Edmund, and I am an incoming PGY1 psychiatry resident.
That's right. Edmund joined the psych crew. Is a doctor now. And Dr. Andrata is being modest. He's a board certified trained CEO psychiatrist and the guru behind the Y in Psychiatry. Let's jump right into it. So this whole season, we're going to be focusing on bipolar disorder. We're going to start very simple with the question, what is bipolar disorder? I know I've heard it in the street. People are saying I'm bipolar. My mom is bipolar. Or Dr. Handrata, what is bipolar disorder?
Let's talk about bipolar. So I'm going to actually focus on bipolar disorder in adults, and Tan is going to focus on bipolar disorder in the pediatric population. So as the name suggests, it has two poles. One side of the pole is depression and the other side is mania or hypomania. So bipolar disorder is basically a disorder of energy. So patients will have mood symptoms. Either they can be euphoric or dysphoric, associated either with increased energy more than normal. So this is abnormally increased energy, or there's an abnormally increased goal-directed behavior. So in short, for a layperson, this is what bipolar disorder looks like. But if you look at the DSM-5 TR criteria, so you have the mood symptoms, which could be abnormally elevated mood or dysphoric mood, which is not normal for the patient, with abnormally increased energy or abnormally increased goal-directed behavior with at least 3 or more than 3 other symptoms. And the mnemonics that a lot of psychiatry residents use is DIGFAST, right? But there are a lot of other conditions which can mimic bipolar disorders, which we are going to talk about in this particular episode and how to differentiate it. Does it make sense?
Makes sense. How about Dr. Wen? How does this differ in the pediatric population?
It doesn't. So I say that tongue in cheek because, there's not like any specifiers in there that talks about this is the age limit as to when you can actually make the diagnosis, or this is the age maximum when you can make the diagnosis. But I will say that the prevalence for when you see this emerge is going to be around late adolescence, young adulthood, where you'll see like the center mass of the bell curve where this comes about. So if it's like really anything prior, then a bit more rare. Not to say that it's completely off the table, though if you're going to play the odds game, that's a little bit lower on my list. All that's to say, we still try to be as faithful to the DSM-5's diagnostic criteria as much as possible. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think the thing that gets me with bipolar, especially in kids, is how can I tell bipolar from ADHD or from just a kid being a kid? Like, at what point would you say this is mania or hypomania versus this is just a hyperactive kid over?
What are you in the military? Yeah, we'll definitely get into like comorbidities a little bit later down the line. But when we're talking about kids, they are like this moving target because one, their temperament, their mood, their life circumstances, what's going on, and their belief system is changing all throughout And at the same time, you're trying to figure out if this is, what's that saying? If this is a state or if this is a trait at that time. To differentiate between the two, I think the biggest thing that I would hang my hat on is the collateral reports that come about. So if it's ADHD, generally this is something that's going to be quite persistent and it's not going to be episodic like you would see in manic episodes. That's probably like the first thing. The second thing is you want to really understand the temperament of the child or the adolescent well before you begin to consider if this is a deviation from that. And then lastly, the dysfunction that this is causing as well. If it's just in one setting versus in two settings, right? And more than anything else, how far deviating from its current function that you see the child or adolescent in. Those are some of the big things that I would consider when it comes to contrasting ADHD and bipolar.
That's very good. Dr. Andrata, question for you.
Yeah.
It's my understanding, if someone has bipolar disorder, the first episode or the first mood disorder that they see is typically depression. So when they come to your office, it's for complaints of depression. How can you make sure, and I know most of our treatments for depression has an increased chance of causing a manic disorder, either causing a manic disorder or uncovering a manic disorder. How can you avoid that pitfall?
That's a great question. So that is where the diagnosis of bipolar disorder gets delayed. So the way I evaluate the patient is getting a thorough history, right? So first, I want to make sure that I rule out all the other medical causes that can mimic mania or depression. So, for example, make sure that you have ruled out substance use disorder. You have ruled out that the patient is on any other medications. For example, patients are on steroids, stimulants. Also make sure that the patient does not have hyperthyroidism. So I will rule out all the medical as well as medications as well as substance use. That's one thing. And then I basically suppose, and you're right, more than 70% of the patients with bipolar disorder will present with depression, right? Only 20% of the patients, approximately 20%, will present with manic symptoms. Then it becomes easier to diagnose it. The problem is, what gives us an idea as to a person with major depressive disorder is going to convert into bipolar disorder? So few things that I look for is I look for the age of onset of the depression, right? So typically, according to research data, the age of onset of depression in patients with bipolar disorder is very early. It's actually before the age of 25 years. And they would have had multiple depressive episodes before the age of 25 years. They will have had 3 or more previous episodes. The depression is usually atypical in feature. That is, they will have a lot of hyperphagia, hypersomnia, rejection sensitivity, leaden paralysis, things like that. Depression with psychotic features is another red flag. Another thing I look for is a family history of bipolar disorder that further increases the risk of bipolar disorder. Non-response to antidepressants in the past, like they have been on antidepressant, but they have not responded, or the antidepressants made them mad. That is a mnemonic, actually. Okay, that basically means that you give an antidepressant and the patient actually has mood instability, or they have a lot of anxiety or agitation, or they feel dysphoric. That's another red flag. Or patients who present with mixed features is another red flag for saying that the patient with depression can switch to a manic episode. And also comorbidities, right? For example, if person presents with depression and they have history of substance use disorder, multiple other medical comorbid conditions. So all these things actually are red flags saying that keep an eye on these patients. They might be having depression, but there is a chance that they can switch and educate the patient. Make sense?
It's then. So a patient comes in and they have all these red flags, right? Like they have the red flags that they have atypical depression in the past. They have the red flag of the medication makes them irritable. They have the red flag of having all these family members that has bipolar spectrum disorders. Would you, and this is first time the patient is coming to you, would you now give them a regular, like an SSRI, SNRI for depression, or would you skip that and go to his mood stabilizer?
Great question, right? So now there are two parts to this. One is if they've had a previous trial of antidepressants and they've failed multiple antidepressant trials, or antidepressants have caused a lot of mood instability, a lot of anxiety and agitation or dysphoria, right? Now, remember one thing. Whenever you start an antidepressant, even if a person doesn't have bipolar disorder, they can actually complain of feeling anxious, irritable, and restless for the first 1 to 2 weeks after you start the antidepressants, right? That's a very normal antidepressant response in patients with depression. So, to answer your question, if I have these red flags, do I start them on an antidepressant? Yeah. So suppose that they've never had any hypomanic episodes, according to the patient interview as well as collateral information. Extremely important to get collateral information from family members who knows the patient very well. And they never had like manic or hypomanic episode. Yeah, I am going to treat the patient like they have major depressive disorder. But at the same time, I'm definitely going to invest a lot of time in psychoeducation. Not just educating the patient, but also the family member with the patient to look for signs of switching to a manic or a hypomanic episode.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. And would you do anything differently?
The thing that I'm usually trying to reassure patients of is that just because someone is mad 1 second and then happy maybe 5 minutes later, but there's no other instance of it, I can see why they would label bipolar, right? It's like they're switching from one side to the next, but I'm usually reassuring them to let them know that is not the case, and I would not use the word bipolar when it comes to that. I guess the only other thing that I would say for at least my population of child and adolescents, I talk to everyone. And if I'm having converging data points that points actually to it, then I am much more likely to have that higher on my diagnostic list. But if I'm getting more noise, and maybe this is more of an environmental thing, maybe someone's getting bullied, maybe there's not the best home environment, maybe it's just a very mean teacher, I try and make sure to consider those scenarios as well before I have adolescents acting out as like this pathologized way of saying, oh, this is someone with a manic episode or is bipolar. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you
Okay.
did. Yeah, you
Okay.
did. Maybe you have a little bipolar yourself and just keep going. Restrictability and
Yeah. No, we're going to label that hypomania here. Let's teach the right phrases.
Related to that, I just want to clarify for our readers out there. Do you think you guys could clarify manic versus hypomanic? And then again, I guess deeper down, like the bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2, just so we have those definitions kind of outlined for our listeners.
yeah. I actually was gonna suggest that. You read my mind, Edmund. You must be a psychiatrist.
Who wants to take that?
I'll take it.
Take it. He's got it.
Don't get too excited then. So
I'm very excited.
bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 is characterized by having a full manic episode. And a manic episode is, if it lasts at least 1 week or till the person is severe enough that they're psychiatrically hospitalized. And it must cause an impairment in functioning, right? So this is something people, your friends and family would know, right? It's not something like they don't know, right? People would know there's going to be a severe impairment in functioning. And you can have 3 or 4 of these kind of symptoms, right? Like you can have grandiosity, inflated self-esteem. And it's not like I'm feeling good. It's like, I feel like God, I am the president type deal. Decreased need for sleep. And so it's not just they're not sleeping, it's they're not sleeping and they don't feel like they need to sleep. Talkative, pressured speech, almost like I am doing right now. Flight of ideas, racing thoughts, extreme distractibility. And you see them, they have increased goal movement. So like they're picking up projects, starting projects, not finishing it, having 10 million ideas. That's also part of the racing thoughts. And then one big pain again is they get involved in risky behaviors that have painful consequences. So that's where you see the spending, right? They go to the casino and they blow all their fortune and their 401k type deal. So that is mania. Hypomania is basically like baby mania, hypomania, right? Sometimes the impairment is not bad enough that they need hospitalization, right? That's when you start seeing hypomania. There's some impairment in functioning, but not that bad, right? Like people will be like, that's just Joe, right? That's just that type deal, right? You still have the same things, but also just to a lesser degree, right? You still have the grandiosity, maybe the less need for sleep, the talkativeness. But again, you can redirect them. It's more controlled. It could be a variant of normal, right? Like in some cases. One other big thing, again, for our listeners to know is typically it's a mood disorder, right? Like bipolar is a mood disorder, and the mood in bipolar is elevated mood. It could also be irritable mood. If it's irritable mood, now you need more criteria, right? So now you need more of the other stuff like the sleep, the speech, the ideas, the distractibility, the goal-directed movement, and things like that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that's perfect.
One more thing. For you to have bipolar 2 disorder, there has to be a depressive episode. This is a fun fact. There have to be a depressive episode. In bipolar 1 disorder, there's a small population of patients that never have a depressive episode. So there are some people out there that just have many. And I think that's so cool.
That is so true, actually. And just to add in bipolar 1, sometimes what happens is that the person actually has the symptoms of like mania, but they've not met the duration criteria, but they're psychotic. Then it becomes bipolar 1.
That's true.
All right. So they can actually have all the symptoms of bipolar 1, but they have not reached the duration criteria, but they are psychotic. That goes as bipolar 1. So in simple, mania is nothing but hypomania on steroids. It completely causes a dysfunction. So that's the only thing I wanted to add is the psychotic episode. You don't need to have the duration.
Yeah, if they need to go to the hospital, you can almost be sure it's mania.
As we're talking about hypomania, as well as the distinguishment between mania, and if you want to talk about mixed episodes.
So mixed episode, it's important to diagnose mixed episode is that once you diagnose mixed episode, you cannot use antidepressants because that will switch them. And plus the suicide risk is also very high in mixed episode. Mixed episode is like either you meet a full criteria of major depressive disorder, plus it has some features of mania or hypomania, but the mania and hypomania does not meet the full DSM criteria for the manic episode or hypomanic episode. So that is major depressive disorder with mixed episode. Or you can have patients who meet a full criteria of mania and hypomania, plus they will have some symptoms of major depressive disorder that does not overlap with the mania or hypomania. So they can have 3 or more of the symptoms, but don't meet the full duration or the diagnostic criteria. So that's a mixed episode.
And so with that, let's talk about cyclothymia or cyclothymia mood disorder. So cyclothymia is just basically non-committal bipolar disorder, right? It's for at least a period of 2 years. They have hypomanic symptoms. So think of it as like a mixed episode, but without meeting criteria for any full mood disorder, right? Like without meeting criteria for MDD, hypomania, or mania. They just have flavor, right? They just have sprinkling, right? Some hypomania here, some mania here, some depressive symptoms here, but do not meet criteria for anything. And it has to go on for 2 years. Tell me about rapid cycling, because I don't believe that's a thing. I think that's a myth.
So rapid cycling is a thing. So patients with rapid cycling, the criteria is they should have 4 or more than 4 episodes of a mood symptom in about a 1 year time. So this could be depression, mania, or hypomania, 4 or more than 4 episodes in a year. Those are rapid cyclists.
But they meet the full criteria of those mood disorders. So it's not like they have mania for 1 day and then they stop. It's they have mania for a week or go to the hospital and then they stop.
So yeah, they meet a full criteria of those episodes, so 4 or more of those episodes in a year. So that's mixed, and that is rapid cycler. Now, to add on to what you mentioned, Amayo, about cyclothymia, you do not meet the full criteria, right? So patients can actually have hypomanic episodes and depressive symptoms, but they don't meet the full criteria of hypomania or depression, and they do not meet a full criteria of major depressive disorder in numerous period, and it should last for at least 2 years. That is what actually Amayo had mentioned.
And the last bit I want to throw in there, because I do want to touch a little bit on disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, because I think that's quite important, because there's a lot of controversy between the idea of like pediatric bipolar and kids getting the diagnosis quite a bit. So in the DSM-5, one of the new diagnoses that was adopted was the disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. It was to reduce or give a different label to the behaviors that you see with kids that have much more chronic severe irritability, that have frequent tempers, and the diagnosis is only up to the age of 18. This is not a diagnosis that you give to adults. And the idea of this was that it would explicitly curb the overdiagnosis of bipolar disorder in young children, because when you don't have this offshoot and bipolar is the only thing that you have left, I think people were making that diagnosis and as folks are hopefully picking up from at least this episode, is that it's not a very light diagnosis, because the outcomes from this, or what you are saying when you're making this diagnosis, is there's going to be likely lifelong medications that are going to be taken from this population, or that's going to be part of this treatment plan for a while. To commit that to children or adolescents, and then for the rest of their life to take medications, you definitely want to be sure that this is the diagnosis. Bipolar is the diagnosis that we're going to be working with, and that there's going to be a lot of weight if you're going to plan to make that diagnosis. DMDD was to prevent a lot of that.
Just a quick question on that. So that is for the age of onset less than what age?
10.
10. Okay.
Yeah, it's when I was saying before that prepubescent kids with pediatric bipolar, that is quite rare. And when the diagnosis was being thrown left and right in that population, that's part of that controversy. And I think the MDD was the calling, or kind of the response to that controversy.
And so for the individuals who have that diagnosis, is the, I guess, treatment, is that more focused on like psychotherapy since they're younger, or are...
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. They're just being treated very similarly. Maybe the symptomology might be interpreted a little bit different, right? There's a little bit more irritability or outbursts or temper or like temper tantrums. Like whatever that state might look like for them might be a little bit different in the adolescent population as it would in the adult population. Like the expansiveness, the energy, like that can still happen, right? But to treat that state, that very distinct period state of lack of insight and judgment, right? It's still generally the same, where we're going to reach towards mood stabilizers. And if they have like depressive episodes, you want to like now treat bipolar depression as opposed to unipolar depression. Most of the clinicians would, or at least for me, I would hope, generally would get away or try to get away with most of the symptomology reduction with the lowest amount of meds possible. Because yes, they're all developing. And you're going to hope that it's not going to impair or, I guess, affect much of their development while you're trying to also treat the bipolar.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll do a quick summary. Guys, we're super excited for this season, and we're super excited for bipolar. I think one of the big takeaways, this is not a light diagnosis. It has a lot of social implications and a lot of long-term implications, especially for our pediatric population. So make sure you watch out all that factors, right? Like home, other diagnoses before you slap someone with the bipolar diagnosis, because it comes with heavy medications that we'll be talking about in the next few episodes. Make sure it always starts with depression. It typically starts with depression. So make sure when you're treating your depressive patients that you screen for bipolar disorder as well. We talked about bipolar 1, the bipolar 2, hypomania for 2, mania for 1. We also talked about cyclothymic disorder, so mixed traits. And that's it for bipolar. Do your homework. Make sure you have diagnostic clarity for bipolar disorder. And until then, see you next time.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you for hanging out with us today's ride aboard the Why in Psychiatry Express. Our crew is already back at the drawing board, brewing up mind-bending topics for the next episode. Don't forget to drop by our website or let us know what you love, what made you think, or what made you Google something at 2 a.m. At the end of the day, we hope we're lighting that little fire of curiosity about psychiatry, or as we like to call it, the why behind the mind. Until next time, keep smiling, keep shining, and above all, stay endlessly curious. See you soon.